battling the relentlessly negative doom and gloom news media. It's the Nick Stenger Show, coming to you live from the Stenger Family Office headquarters. It's your host, Nick Stenger.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Nick Stenger Show. My name's Nick Stenger. We are the Stenger Family Office. For the past 44 years, it's been our mission to deliver both clarity and confidence to help secure your financial future. Welcome back to the show, episode 183, headed toward recession. Producer O said, Nick, shouldn't there be a question mark at the end of that statement? And I said, no, we're going to get into it today. Maybe we are headed toward recession. Is that a reason to panic? Is it a reason for you to jump ship and go into gold bars and silver coins and annuities? No, not yet. Do not do that. We've talked about it all year. For the past 182, 183 episodes, we've said essentially the same thing. And you've been wondering, Nick, why is it that you just keep saying the same thing on the show every week? Because you get inundated with 24/7 relentlessly negative doom and gloom news like we always say in the intro of the show. And these are the times where you need the clarity and confidence. You need the good news, the reasons, math, data, statistics, all of the optimistic, real reasons of the real economy behind the scenes why you have to stay on your plan. Because if you don't, you're going to be like the person, our 1 out of 600 clients that panicked at the absolute bottom. I told you, they always call me at the absolute bottom. They want to get out at the absolute worst time. And the S&P was at around 5,000 points. The all-time low was right around 49.50, 49.20. And now we're still back up to 54.50, even after today's pullback, down about 1.5% in the markets, depending on when you're watching this. We're recording this on April 30th at 9:30 a.m. We'll see where the rest of the day ends up. But the big news this morning was that we are possibly going into a recession. We had a lighter GDP report than expected. But just remember that GDP report is not finalized. This is still just an early estimate. And we're going to talk about how GDP gets calculated and what goes into all of this. Do not panic. Don't let these news stories scare you. This is why you have to be on the show each and every week. If you're not subscribed, make sure you do that. Get subscribed on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify. Make sure you send it to your friends and family so that they don't make the worst mistake of their lives and sell and panic and get off at the worst possible time. We so appreciate the fact that you have subscribed. If you've already done that, thank you for doing that. Thank you for being with us each and every week. It helps us get the show to more and more people. We'd so appreciate if you wouldn't mind doing that. Now, before we jump into this week's content, don't forget, we just got past our April event here in Houston, had a awesome record attendance, just a phenomenal event at the Four Seasons. We're going to follow that up now with October. We've got Investor Day. That's coming up very, very soon. Do not forget to register. And I will tell you, this thing fills up very quickly. We already have people on the pre-registration. I think Katie told me the other week that we've got 8 to 10 people already registered for the event that hasn't even been sent out yet. So this event will be sent out very, very soon. This is why you have to subscribe, because you're finding out about this now. If you want to register, send an email to Katie Poulos, katie.poulos at stengerfamilyoffice.com, and register for the event. But don't wait, because as soon as that invite goes out, it's going to be basically full. The thing fills up every single year. We're going to be at Gibson's in Oak Brook, October 16th and 17th. Don't miss it. This is one of our best events of the year. We got Jeremy Schwartz from Wisdom Tree, Dr. Siegel's star student. Absolutely incredible, talking about stocks for the long run, the newest edition. Then we're going to follow that up with Jeff Lanza, who's talking about how to stay safe from cybercrime, which is a huge topic right now, especially amidst some of these blackouts that we saw in Spain. And you cannot miss this, How to Stay Safe Online. Jeff Lanza, former FBI special agent. And then after Jeff, we've got Andrew Opdyke, our keynote speaker this year. Do not miss Andrew. He's been at Investor Day now. This will be his third year, and he's absolutely phenomenal, an economist at First Trust Portfolios. All right, let's jump into this week's show. Was it tariffs or the Fed that caused the U.S. economy to contract in the first quarter? First of all, this is an estimate still, so don't forget the fact of how this works. Our first early estimate just came out for GDP in the first quarter. We're going to have a second estimate coming out May 29th, and then a third estimate not out until June 26th. And then after these estimates of GDP, this is, yes, all for the first quarter still, all these estimates are going to come out. Then we're going to have the actual reading on GDP. It's kind of crazy that it takes this long to get the GDP number, but that's just how it works. And by the time those second and third estimates could come out, just remember things could change a little bit. We actually could have a better than expected first quarter. I think that's actually what's going to happen because remember the tariffs really didn't go into effect now until the beginning of the second quarter, April 1st. So how can you possibly blame everything on tariffs for the first quarter when in reality, I think it's going to be second quarter GDP, second quarter earnings that are really going to show the initial signs of weakness from the tariffs. There's no question we're going to show a little bit of weakness here. And Trump has backed off some of the most aggressive tariffs, but he is not going to back off of China. And that's what we predicted. We said this weeks ago. And remember, I always tell you, this show is tomorrow's news today. This is why you got to get on the show. We haven't been right every single call, spot on. We don't bat 1,000, but we've been pretty much right way more than we've been wrong. And I've told you weeks now that this is all about China. This was not about going after every single country everywhere like the Smoot-Hawley Trade Act in the 1920s. This is about one country. This is about China and what they did with COVID and what they've done to steal our IP. You can have a globalized world. You can build cars in all different countries and then ship them into the U.S., but you can't steal the intellectual property. You can't steal our technology, and that's what the Chinese have done. They just have not played by the rules. I'm sure I'm on some watch list now for saying that, but that's the reality. When you let China into the WTO in 2001, give them favored nation status, and you basically help build their entire economy with capitalism, guess what? Capitalism works. When you introduce capitalism to a place, it actually works. And so that's what China has benefited from is capitalism. Now, President Xi has taken a much harder turn back towards communism, and I believe we don't get lots of news and reports from China directly, but I believe that he is losing his grip quickly on the Chinese people. And one of the key metrics we followed since 2019 on this, 2018 even, has been the number of people, the hundreds of millions of people in China leaving the Communist Party, leaving the CCP. And some of this is also thanks to technology. Why is it that all these communist countries crack down on technology? Why do they turn off the internet? Why do they censor? Why do they hate stand-up comedy? Why do they hate podcasts? And why do they hate YouTube shows? Because people are getting the news for themselves and able to make their own determination of what they think is right or wrong. And it's not all just centralized control. And so when you are a centralized power, and the U.S. does this a little bit, Europe does this more, and China does this the worst, they crack down on free speech because they want to control the narrative. Well, technology hurts that ability. It's really tough for communist countries to control the narrative when you have 80 million YouTube channels and you have hundreds and thousands and millions of podcasts and all these different voices. Now, are they all right? Are they all spot on? No, of course not. Is there wrong information put out from time to time? Of course. But that is far better. Free speech is far better than the alternative, which is censorship. And so as the technology has gotten better and better, you've seen this with Elon Musk now, and you can love him, you can hate him, whatever. Forget all that for a second. Just look at Starlink and look at the satellites that he's put up into space and how he's been able to project internet even into places like North Carolina who had massive problems. And he was able to get these people on the internet in a matter of hours. And that was phenomenal. Okay, so now what's happening is he's able to possibly go into these places that have been very authoritative and centralized and censorship and all the rest of it, and possibly get people the internet for what it really is. And that is the best possible thing. The more and more people have the information and they can make their own determinations, the better it is for the rest of us. It's the better it is for society and for democracy. And so that's what China is fighting so hard against today under President Xi. Now, when President Xi is gone, could they take a turn back towards capitalism? And should they? Yes, they should. It would be much better for them if they did. Will they? It's hard to say. But, when you have a godless society, when you have an atheist society, then the government becomes God. And that is a very, very scary road to be going down. And that's what's happened now. So the reason I've been bearish on China, the reason that I've told you, be careful with Chinese investments, and we've been right. I mean, we've told you this for 6-7 years now, be careful on Chinese investments, is the exact same reason we said don't go invest in the Soviet era companies back in the Cold War days. It's not that hard to figure out. No communist country, even after years of being somewhat successful and being able to hold it together, even at the very end, every single communist country has collapsed. And a great case study of this is Venezuela. And if you look at the difference between Venezuela and Guyana now, where they've let ExxonMobil come in and produce just this enormous amount of wealth from oil, it's just a night and day difference to see what's gone on in Latin America. Look at Javier Milei with Argentina. Argentina now is booming. And you don't have to love everything about Javier Milei's personality, but I will just say that the policies that have been adopted in Argentina with smaller government, smaller regulation, less government spending, and more entrepreneurial, pro-entrepreneur policies has allowed Argentina to thrive. And so, yes, China is the big target of this trade war. And what nobody's really looking at, not a lot of people are talking about, is yes, Apple is looking at India production. They're looking to move some iPhone production offshore, off of China, and diversify its supplier base. That would be great. That'd be a smart move for Apple in general, be a smart move for any company. But don't forget about Latin America. And President Trump, the first time he was in office, again, I'm not endorsing anybody. I'm not telling you go vote for Trump or don't vote for Trump. I'm not saying, you have to like every tweet he puts out or his personality or anything like that. I'm just telling you from a policy standpoint, the first time he was in the Oval Office, he made a wonderful trade deal with Mexico and Canada. And they would agree with that, too. That was one of the best deals ever. And now what he's done is he's actually laid off a lot of his initial rhetoric with Mexico with tariffs. And there's a reason for that. I think the current administration is going to want to see production move back to Mexico, move back to Latin America. So again, I said this a couple weeks ago, you don't have to have the iPhone factory in Naperville, Illinois or Houston, Texas. You can move it to Latin America where you still have lower cost of labor. You still have people that can be trained and become skilled labor to do these jobs. But it would be a gutting of mainland China's economy. And that's what you're seeing. The orders in mainland China have fallen off a cliff. You're going to continue to see this. And so, again, just be careful what you're buying. If you're going out in emerging markets and thinking you're going to see this major turnaround, just be careful. And I also think this is the part that's unconfirmed, but I also think that this thing ain't over yet. I don't think we've seen the worst from China's retaliation yet, and it's possible that we see an all-out cyber attack. That's what certainly the WEF, the World Economic Forum, has talked about, and our good friend Klaus Schwab, who, just got busted for using all of the money from the World Economic Forum for his personal gain. His wife is getting $1,000 massages. They're flying on private jets all the time. Surprise, surprise, the guy who is telling you can't have a cow because it farts too much or because you can't plug your toaster in because it's going to use too much electricity. That's the same guy who's now getting in trouble for misappropriating funds from the foundation he started that is telling everybody else to be green. I mean, this is absolutely insane. And we called this. We told you this years ago. Just look out because it's going to get really interesting. And you're already starting to see it shake out right in front of your face. And it's not that we don't all want to be green. It's not that we want to, not go outside and not have clean air. I mean, of course we all do. We all want a greener world. But the way we're going to get there is through capitalism, not through centralized control and Marxism and communism. And meanwhile, you're going to go to the Paris Climate Accords and you're going to go to Davos and you're going to say the U.S., you need to cut more, but never say anything about the Chinese. The Chinese never have to cut their emissions. Meanwhile, they're building a record number of coal plants, more than they've ever built. At the same time, the UK and the US have cut emissions at a record pace. In fact, we've led the world at cutting our emissions. How have we done it? Through capitalism. And so we can get to all the things we all want, but we're going to do it through entrepreneurship. And so that's what I always try to drive your attention toward is watch out for this centralized control. And anytime, this is what gets into the investment portfolio, anytime you're invested in a place where you don't know what's going to happen from day to day, you don't know if somebody's going to just turn off the switch for Jack Ma and you're never going to hear from Jack Ma again, well, be careful owning those companies. You just don't know what's going to happen. Now, you say, Nick, isn't that what's happening with President Trump? Oh, President Trump is authoritative. He's a dictator. Isn't he just terrible and awful? And I'm not saying anything, again, about personality or tweets or anything like that. But just remember the way that the U.S. is set up. the U.S. has a system of checks and balances. We have the rule of law. We have personal property rights. We have survived a whole lot of different regime changes. And so if President Trump, if the Trump administration doesn't get this right, if they don't get the tariff thing fixed by the time the midterms roll around, they're going to get blown out of the water. And they know that. And so I think you just got to stay on your plan here. And as tough as it's going to be, as much as we might have a further or deepened correction from today we're in about a 10% correction. Maybe we go down to 20% again like we were a few weeks ago. That's the S&P right around 4,950 or 5,000. It's not a high probability, but I think it is a possibility. Even if that happens, you just got to hold your nose and buy stocks because, again, those midterm elections aren't that far away. We're going to get a turnaround. We are going to get these trade deals fixed. And I think we're going to get taxes lower from where they're at today. At a minimum, we're at least going to get the Trump tax cuts extended. And that's why the market's not down 30, 40% right now. If we really were going to have an all-out global meltdown, the market would already be pricing that in. And it's just not. We're pricing in today about a 10% reduction in earnings. The market's down 10%. So just stay on your plan. It's going to be tough. It's going to be hard. I know it's not the answer you want, but it's the answer you need. Don't panic off your long-term game plan. Now, let's say that we do have a decline in GDP, like the early estimates are showing, down 0.3%. It's not Armageddon, just down 0.3%. But then we follow that up with Q2, which is likely to have lower GDP again. Okay, now you're in a textbook recession, 2 declining consecutive quarters of real, not nominal, real, meaning inflation-adjusted GDP. That's a recession. The media is going to jump all over that. Just be ready for this. I told you, tomorrow's news today, be ready for all of these doom and gloom stories. Oh my goodness, we're in a recession. The world's coming to an end. This is going to be worse than 08 and 09 and Chicken Little. The sky is falling. Build a bunker in your backyard and fill it with canned food, gold bars and meals ready to eat and the water filtration systems. Just be ready for that. It's coming. I'm telling you, if we go into an actual textbook recession, you're going to see those stories. But we already have gone through this before. If you can remember back to 2022, when Joe Biden was president, there was a textbook recession. You're like, no, Nick, that can't be possible. There's no way. The media never talked about it. Exactly. But if you look at the data, remember, 2 declining quarters, consecutive real GDP. That's exactly what happened in the summer of 2022. And what did the stock market do in anticipation of that? We went down 22, 23% that summer. That's what happens when you have a textbook recession. So all this to say, remember how the market works. It's a forward-looking discounting mechanism of what's to come. What does that mean? The market goes down before the bad news happens. It goes up before the good news actually hits the press. And that's exactly what happened in 2022. The market bottomed before the actual recession came out, and then we went on to make brand new all-time highs. And there is no way you could have possibly timed that. If you were sitting at home watching CNBC or Fox News or Fox Business or whatever, and you were looking at the scrolling ticker tape on the screen and watching Scott Wapner and all these guys, and you were trying to trade this thing, you didn't stand a chance because every other person on Wall Street already knew that the recovery was going to happen way before the media reported it. And that's exactly what's going to happen this time. We were already down 20%. Now we're down 10. We've gotten half of our losses back. And the recovery will happen while the bad news is being published. That's always, always, always what happens. So stay on your plan. Do not panic. Don't jump ship. I already told you. Now, if you want to call me and have a grief sharing session and we can talk about the 10 to 15 reasons the world's coming to an end, please call me. My number is 630-912-8295. I'm happy to talk anytime, but I'm going to tell you the exact same thing I just told you on the show. Do not panic. I understand we're going to have 10 reasons to panic, but guess what? Next year, you're going to have 10 new reasons. The year after that, you're going to have 10 more reasons, and you're going to forget about the 10 reasons this year that you were so worried. That's how it always, always works. Now, let's wrap up this week's show with 2 things. I just want to explain how the stock market works and why things are going to be okay. And then number 2, what you should actually do with your portfolio right now. Okay, so number 1, how does the stock market work? Let's use Costco as our example today. If you've been to Costco in the past couple years, you can't even move your cart on a Saturday morning. And then you go back on Sunday and you still can't move your cart. It's packed. You can barely get in the door. I went there 10 minutes too early one weekend and drove past. I actually took a video of it. And there was a line of 75 people waiting to get into Costco 10 minutes before it opened here in Naperville, Illinois. Okay. So it's just an incredible business. And by the way, the demand that we're seeing at places like Costco and the real-time data that we've seen in the airport TSA checkpoint data is 10%, 12% on a lot of days higher than it was at the peak of 2019. You're just not seeing a weakening of demand. We were at the Four Seasons, which happens to be a very nice hotel in Houston, and we were there for about a week getting ready for the event and looking at the hotel and everything. And literally every single night, it didn't matter that it was Monday night or Tuesday night or Wednesday night or Thursday or Friday. Every single night at the Four Seasons, they had a completely full ballroom event. Okay, and I'm supposed to believe that the U.S. economy is about to fall off a cliff and go into an abyss. Okay, Gibson's, the nicest, fanciest steakhouse in our area here in the suburbs in Oak Brook, that we're doing our event for Investor Day in October, we had to change the week and we had to push it back with one of the speaker schedules. Well, the person we work with at Gibson said, Nick, the only date I've got left is the 17th. That's literally the only date in October. I mean, we're not even close to October yet. And she's got one date. Okay. And so I just say, look at the real economy. You're not seeing this massive slowdown that everybody's talking about domestically. Now, the companies that did not prepare, that bought all their goods from China, and I saw this guy on Twitter saying, oh, I'm a small business. I have $1 million of revenue, and it's all tied to China, and I'm here to tell you that these tariffs are awful and horrible. Well, okay, yes, we feel bad for this guy with the concentrated risk in China. But don't you ever think to yourself, how could you not be prepared? How could you not be diversified? I think about it like the COVID era with the interest rates, when these banks went under because they were buying 30-year treasuries at 1.5% interest rates. Well, where'd you think interest rates were going to go? They were 0%. You weren't managing your risk correctly. So if you're that guy, look, we feel bad for you. You have your $1 million business where you get every single one of your inputs from China. Okay, yes, we feel bad. But guess what? There's plenty of companies out there who aren't going to feel these tariffs like that guy is because they were thinking ahead. They were diversified. I'll give you an easy example. WeatherTech. WeatherTech is a company that makes the floor mats. Their newest ad, I love their new ad. They say, we're not going to have to move any production back to the U.S. Why? Because we never left in the first place. We make all this stuff in Bolingbrook, Illinois, right down the road from our office here in Naperville. So people have made conscious decisions. They've either made decisions to diversify their supplier lines, they've made decisions to manufacture in the U.S., and they're going to be okay. It's the people that weren't diversified, that weren't prepared for this, that are going to suffer. And so do we feel bad for Apple if they say, oh, we have all this iPhone production in China, now we're going to have to move it to India? Well, we've been talking about trade and tariffs since 2018. What were you guys doing? But didn't you think ahead and say we got to start moving some of this ahead of time to Latin America or to India or other places? I mean, this is their own fault. And so, yes, you're going to see some turmoil and some volatility. But remember, in the portfolio, companies like Costco, I believe, are really not going to suffer the same way like these other companies are. And so I go back to my Costco example. Each Costco does about $300 million of revenue per year. I mean, that's absolutely insane. Almost $1 million a day of revenue, if you can believe it. Now, most of it's very low margin. They make all of their money essentially from the membership program. And so on the left side of the equation of the PE ratio, price to earnings, the right side, the earnings, the E, Costco is growing its earnings. And you've seen its stock just go up an incredible amount the past couple of years. Look at Costco here, the past 5 years, up 225%. This year in 2025, when the S&P is down about 8-9%, Costco's actually up 8%. The past 12 months, if you can believe it, Costco's up 36%. Now, none of this is investment advice. I'm just telling you, part of the reason Costco's stock price is up 225% the past 5 years is because they've grown the E, the right side of that PE equation, the earnings. They've grown their revenues, they've grown their profits, and they've done a very, very good job managing that company. Now, on the left side, the P, remember price times earnings, that's the big question that always comes into play when we go through bear markets and market volatility in general. The price that we're going to pay for their great earnings is always fluctuating. So once in a while, remember the example of Mr. Market, like I shared the other week, Benjamin Graham, Warren Buffett's mentor, who said Mr. Market comes around and he walks past your house and you paid $400,000, let's just say, for your house, and he yells one day $500,000, the next day he yells $300,000, one day he yells $1 million, the other day he yells $100,000. It's your decision if you're going to listen to Mr. Market and sell him your house at $100,000 that you paid $400,000 for. Same thing with Costco. Mr. Market is yelling out constantly. Now today, Mr. Market says that Costco's worth $434 billion with a B. One day he might say 500 billion, one day he might say $1 trillion, one day he might say 200 billion, and it's your job to decide, am I going to sell him my Costco stock, one of the most premier companies in the U.S., one of the best managed companies, at a ridiculous price that it is not worth? That's what you have to decide as an investor. So where do we come in as the financial advisor? We help you not listen to Mr. Market. We help you stay on your plan and go through all these different cycles. Now, this is the last thing I'm going to leave you with today, and then we're going to wrap up. What do you do with your Costco stock? And really, what do you do with the rest of the portfolio when you're going through these corrections and this volatility? Number one, you ask yourself, am I on a goals-based plan? Do I have enough money to cover my goals? If I'm retired, do I have 3 to 5 years of living expenses and short-term treasuries that do not fluctuate when the market goes down? If the answer is yes, move on to question number 2. Do I own high quality? Because if I don't own high quality and I got a bunch of garbage in the portfolio, when times get tough, I have no protection. I don't even know if on the other side of this, I'm going to make it out alive. And guess what? Small caps are just like that. So small cap stocks are down 23, 24% from the peak, while large caps are down about 10 or 11%. Why is it that the top 50 of the S&P 500 has been better insulated than the rest of the market? It's just higher quality. So that's your second question. Do I own high quality? Now, if you answered yes to I'm on a goals-based plan, and number 2, yes to the fact that you own high quality, you ask yourself, number 3, what do I do now? And my answer is this: absolutely nothing. Just stay on your plan. Pretend like you're going into a coma for the next 5 years. You're going to wake up and your portfolio will be up, and you're going to be happy you didn't press the panic button. I told you this the other week. That one person who jumped off their plan out of our 600 clients got back in. Thank goodness they watched the show. They got the clarity and confidence. They're back on their plan now. But that one day cost them about $43,000. If they didn't get back in, if they hadn't gotten back onto the plan, they would have lost $143,000. Do not make a mistake you're going to regret. Stay on your plan. Keep coming back to the show. Don't forget to like it, subscribe, share it with your friends and family, and come back next week for episode 184. Thank you so much.